Tailed fox sisters who loved each other dearly. During a trip downtown to hang out, the older sister Jiam Ho accidentally locked eyes with a handsome human guy and fell head over heels. So she decided to quit the game, seal the deal to become human to marry the love of her life. Right after the older sister got married, the younger sister Eun Ho stayed behind alone, feeling lonely watching their PDA, but still reluctantly wished her sister happiness. Who knew life isn't like a dream. Her sister's life as a human was a total train wreck. Looking at her sister's tragic example gave Eun Ho PTSD, so she decided to say a hard no to being human, a species that is weak, sickly, and will definitely have to log off from Earth. Isn't being an immortal fox great? Why walk into a trap? So Eun Ho lived a happy single life for 900 years until she bumped into the male lead Yeol, a genius striker who hasn't had his break yet. At this moment, Yeol is still the outcast in the high school team, while the spotlight belongs to Xianyu, the golden boy of Coach Zhang. This jerk keeps praising Xianyu to the sky to the scouts of a national youth team. As for Yeol, the old man deeses him as a guy who only knows how to show off and doesn't know how to play with teammates. But karma comes for everyone. Coach Zhang just finished criticizing when Yeol unleashed a bicycle kick, scoring a super goal, no different than a slap right in his face. Thought he would be praised after scoring, but who knew after the match? Yeol was physically assaulted by the teacher without missing a beat. The reason was daring to steal the spotlight and not feeding the ball to Crown Prince Xianyu to score. It turns out Xianyu has a dad who spends big, specializing in pumping money to the coach, so the old man treats him like fragile porcelain. As for Yeol, he is dirt poor and still owes club fees, so naturally he gets bullied a lot. At the same time, 3 contractors are fighting over the Ban Nam renovation project worth tens of trillions. Among them, GMSU Architecture Company is losing ground because of the power abuse scandal of director Lion. In the car, the driver was afraid the boss would blow a fuse hearing bad news, so he hurriedly turned off the radio. Who knew the boss would still yell at him until he was pale for the crime of not focusing on driving, but perking up his ears to hear people trash him on the radio. The driver panicked explaining and almost caused an accident. So the boss went crazy, beat him up, and then drove himself to the meeting. This line is exactly the standard domineering CEO in Legends, but a toxic version. He is the chairman's son, so he thinks he is above the law and treats employees like animals. He decided to snatch this contract to show the old board of directors, proving the truth that whatever cannot be bought with money can be bought with a lot of money. In the bidding meeting, the rival company was preparing to present when they suddenly had a problem with the computer. Right after that, the beautiful sister Eun Ho took over the big screen, making the whole hall buzz with confusion. She snapped her fingers to hypnotize everyone present and ordered them to vote for GMSU. After the job was done, she woke Lion up and told him to follow her. That night, Yeol was on his way home when he saw his grandmother struggling to pull a cart of scraps up a slope. The dutiful boy rushed out to help his grandmother immediately, taking the chance to show off the goal from the afternoon. Because he was afraid she would worry, he lied that his club fees were waived, but in reality, he had to work as a delivery guy every night to earn every meager penny. Passing by the football field, he caught Xianyu practicing alone, so Yeol stopped to challenge him to a one-on-one solo. The result was that Xianyu lost and had to treat Yeol to a chicken meal. Being mocked by Xianyu as a lazy genius, Yeol corrected him immediately that a dirt-poor genius is correct. The family has so many issues, no parents, grandma is sick, where's the time to practice? I don't practice more because I'm busy making a living, but my skills are still enough to leave you in the dust. Meanwhile, Eun Ho showed her hand, revealing her fox identity, and read Lion like a book. The position of heir is shaky because he acts like a jerk and offended his rich father. Having as much money as his personality is bad. Oh my god, he is exactly her potential VIP client. Lion still hasn't fixed his arrogant habit, thinking the power of the dollar solves everything. So he arrogantly asked what she could actually do. Annoyed by his sketchy attitude, Eun Ho immediately gave him a travel ticket to a trippy hell to teach him a lesson. She kicked him down the cliff and taught him a lesson about order. Money is paper. I'm the law. I help if I like it. I quit if I don't. Stop having opinions. Stop being arrogant. You weakest human. Then the beautiful sister finalized her practice principles. Say no to doing good deeds because she fears accumulating too much virtue and becoming human, and also say no to killing people, while the rest is up to luck. Just as she finished her lecture, the secretary called to announce the winning bid. So Eun Ho kicked Lion out to go live it up and celebrate. And as for the fee, she had already automatically swiped the card from his car trunk. Money is meant to be spent. The next morning, Eun Ho wandered around the shopping mall to spend the money she just extorted. But going shopping without a bestie is boring to death. So the beautiful sister immediately spotted a young girl with fashion taste that matched hers and immediately snapped her fingers to force her to go along. The girl was suspicious at first, thinking Eun Ho was bluffing about her nine-tailed fox identity, so she snapped her fingers again, making the girl believe it immediately. After regaining her composure, the girl turned on gossip mode and wanted to ask something. Eunho knew right away that the girl was curious about fox spirits specializing in eating human livers and seducing handsome guys to suck their energy. She had to correct it immediately, saying it was all due to those nonsensical movies weaving tall tales. Why is it that when humans cultivate, they become fairies and get respected by people, but when foxes work there butts off cultivating to grow 9 tails, they get labeled as monsters? If they eat human livers, all the spiritual power that the fox worked hard to collect will vanish. To sum it up, she declared she is the last fox on Earth, and she is extremely satisfied with her current lifestyle. Immortality is not bland and boring as humans think, because the human world changes too fast, and there is always something new and interesting. To prove her worldly experience, the fox took the girl back in time to the historical milestones she had passed. In 1930, she also followed the trend to learn English, but the Western teacher was too hard to understand, so Eunho snapped her fingers to force her to speak Korean for speed. In 1970, she was into comics, but the author dared to let the main character die. So she stormed into the author's house and forced him to redraw it into a happy ending. By 1990, she used to be a gamer, grinding through several electronic machines. Who knew she would get crushed by a kid? She snapped her fingers to force him to yield, but when he threw the game too obviously, she got offended and gave a ridiculous requirement. Play your best, but you are forbidden to beat me. By 2025, she was obsessed with watching TV all day because the movies were too catchy. Thought the little sister would be dazzled. Who knew she would ask a question that made Eunho freeze? Is living like that really fun, sister? You quit whatever you study, have no friends, and only know how to use money to entertain yourself. Being hit right in the sore spot, the fox got salty and snapped her fingers to manipulate the girl to change her tune. However, even though she praised her posh life endlessly, Eunho still felt it was fake and didn't sound right at all. Meanwhile, Seonyu had good intentions and wanted to gift shoes to Yeol because he is a promising talent of the national youth team, sponsored by brands for a few years now. Yeol heard that and felt self-pity, so he bluntly refused to accept the help. While walking home upset, Yeol bumped into Eunho and she was thrown into the corner of the wall. He worriedly asked if Eunho was okay, but she criticized him for being big but the weakest. Just then, Eunho saw the future fragments of his friend Seonyu. That was the prophecy power being activated, just like when she foresaw the disaster of her older sister. What is destined cannot be fixed, but the important thing is that she saw that Seonyu's future will be very rich and famous. So Eunho immediately marked Seonyu into the list of tasty prey to follow. The girl going with her asked Eunho to grant a wish for herself and also asked for a discount for friends. Who knew Eunho would use magic to completely format the girl's memory as if they had never known each other. Right then, an old guy looking like a hobo king showed up. Turns out he is the Lord Big Dipper. A noble deity came to give Eunho a heads up. He warned her that her scale is tipping and she's about to face a life or death choice. Either become a human or vanish into thin air forever. Our fox lady is stubborn, so not only was she not scared, but she also mocked these idle gods who love to be busybodies. Heavenly laws are just vague and total nonsense. Meanwhile, the dynamic duo Yeol and Seonyu were grinding hard at soccer practice late at night. Even though their backgrounds are total opposites, they both share a passion for the field. While getting hyped, Yeol launched a sky-high kick that landed the ball straight on the head of Eunho, who was taking a walk. The beautiful sister threw a fit, destroyed the ball, and while she was at it, splashed cold water right in Yeol's face. Wake up, honey. In the future, Yeol will just be a nobody, while the glorious spotlight belongs to Seonyu over there. At the same time, Lion was partying hard to celebrate winning the bid. Wasted, he drove like a maniac, ran a red light, and crashed straight into Seonyu. After causing the accident, he cowardly sped off to escape. Yeol rushed his friend to the ER and then went to the police station to file a report. The lowlife director tried to pull a scapegoat trick, forcing his driver to take the fall, but Yeol immediately recognized that the driver was innocent because he had clearly seen the face of the guy who caused the accident. Summoned by the police, Lion had to beg Eunho for help, asking her to use magic to wipe the witness's memory. At first, Eunho refused because she was planning to take a 10-year break. Even though she had a sassy mouth with Lord Big Dipper just for kicks, it's still better to be safe than sorry. But when he raised the price to double what it was yesterday, she did a U-turn and agreed immediately. But an unexpected twist happened. While Eunho was casting the spell, she was shocked to realize that the destinies of the two boys had been swapped. The one who will become a superstar in the future is now Yeol, not Seonyu anymore. The moment she realized this twist of fate, her spiritual power dropped to zero, causing Eunho to shut down and collapse. And so, right in his arms, her biggest secret was exposed. 9 foxtails appeared clear as day. Right after that, Eunho recovered and was able to stand up. When asked about the weird thing that just happened, she didn't explain but left immediately because she had urgent business. She planned to walk through the door to look cool, but instead, she bumped her head with a thud, proving that her spiritual power had dropped terribly. The young man was still dazed, not understanding what had just happened. Eunho angrily rushed to Lord Big Dipper's temple to get to the bottom of things. She called out forever but didn't see him, so she got mad, smashed some statues, and planned to set the temple on fire just to vent. Only then did that old man decide to show his face. When she questioned him about losing a large amount of spiritual power, he told her she had committed a crime and had to pay a corresponding price. Just because she carelessly interfered with human fate, someone who wasn't supposed to die had died. It turns out Lion had sent the driver to his grave to silence him and ordered the body to be buried in a remote place. Eunho rushed to find Yeol. She offered him a deal. "Do you want to make a wish, honey?" But Yeol was busy catching the last bus, so he let her words go in one ear and out the other. Eunho immediately said she would use magic to bring him home. Having said that, the beautiful sister grabbed the young guy's hand, crossed the streets at light speed, jumped up hundreds of steps in a single bound, and arrived at his house in the blink of an eye. Yeol, jaw-dropped, asked if this magic could go to Europe. The beautiful sister took the chance to lightly flex her fancy schedule: breakfast in New York, lunch in France, and afternoon coffee in Italy. Yeol liked it so much he held her hand and asked her to do it one more time. Getting initiated skinship from a handsome guy, the fox was unconsciously mesmerized and forgot who she was. It took a few seconds for her to snap out of it, and she startled, pulling her hand back to play hard to get. She demanded Yeol make a wish because she couldn't interfere in human affairs if they didn't wish for it. Seeing the guy was still clueless, she spelled it out for him. He wanted to catch the driver who caused the accident and make him pay, right? The very next day, Lion was invited by the police to the station for tea because he was suspected of the hit and run. A surveillance video was suddenly recovered last night, showing Lion present at the accident scene. Realizing the situation was critical, he asked to go to the toilet to secretly burn the business card to call for help from the fox sister. Who knew? He did it over and over again, but she still didn't show up. The entire media had already reported on Lion being summoned by the police. As expected, he got a call from his chairman dad grilling him. This time, the chance of inheriting the group chairman position is basically toast. But his bad luck wasn't done yet. The radio reported that the driver's body had been found on the mountain. Lion was in shock when the car suddenly turned around. The secretary lost consciousness. Big sister Eunho appeared and revealed that the discovery of the body was her doing and declared that he could no longer be her client. It was all due to the butterfly effect. She helped him win the bid. He went drinking to celebrate the victory, then drove while drunk and caused an accident. When trying to cover it up, he ended up killing someone. Long story short, she had accidentally created bad karma indirectly, so now she had to clean up this mess to salvage some spiritual power. Saying that, she snapped her fingers, forcing him to quit his shady ways from now on and spill all his crimes. Just then, the car stopped at the police station, where a crowd of reporters was waiting to hunt for news. Lion wanted to hide in the car, but it was no use. His traitorous body automatically dragged itself out. His mouth wanted to stay shut, but it kept automatically broadcasting. "I want to turn myself in. I killed someone." It turns out that in a fit of rage, he had killed the driver and then ordered the body to be buried to destroy the evidence. While he was at it, he confessed the full combo: tax evasion, money laundering, and everything else. When Lion confessed all his sins, a part of the spiritual power returned to Eunho, and her karma scale balanced out again. She happily brought a suitcase to gift to Yeol, saying he would need it soon. She also casually flexed that Lion turning himself and was single-handedly directed by her. Yeol curiously asked, "What are you?" The beautiful sister thought the guy was asking for her name and was secretly thrilled, but who knew he was asking about her species, demon or Satan? Eunho was visibly annoyed and suggested he think of something typically Korean, to which the young man dropped a bombshell. A virgin ghost? At this point, the beautiful sister was truly depressed and had to reveal she is a nine-tailed fox. With this beauty, this mysterious and posh vibe, how could he not recognize it? Afraid the young guy would run for his life, she hurriedly clarified that she wasn't interested in livers and had no desire to become human either. Saying that, she gave him a business card to call whenever he needed help, casually revealing that he would soon be rich enough to be her client. Who knew Yeol would remind her that last time she predicted differently, saying he would be a nobody. But Yeol didn't really care about her prophecies because he was sure he would become a famous player. Seeing his snarky attitude, Eunho immediately made the business card in his hand disappear. She told him she was planning to take a break and relax for a while, and besides, right now he was still broke and not on the level to be her client. When the time is right, the business card will appear on its own. Thought everyone would go their separate ways, but who knew he would ask for her name? The beautiful sister happily revealed her name was Eunho, then a second later acted all high and mighty, as if she was reluctantly granting him an honor. Not long after Eunho disappeared, team leader Hong from the Football Federation showed up. He announced that Yeol was selected for the national youth team and had to go abroad for training next week. It turns out that because Xianyu was unlucky and got injured, Yeol was chosen as a replacement. In the hospital, Xianyu was struggling with rehabilitation exercises. He still appeared optimistic and cheerful, even though he didn't know how long it would take to fully recover. He He just encouraged Yeol not to worry about him and to burn bright when joining the team. A few days later, Yeol eagerly set off abroad to train with the national youth team. Just like that, 9 years flew by in a flash. The nine-tailed beautiful sister was planning to go big, buying an entire island to serve as her own kingdom to chill. The broker quoted a rock-bottom price of $12 billion and said it could be negotiated down to $11 billion. But she was in rich lady mode and looked down on small change, so she snapped her fingers demanding to transfer the full $12 billion instantly, just to be classy. Who knew the guy would report that the money hadn't arrived? Only then did the beautiful sister freeze, realizing she didn't have enough money left. Sitting around for 9 years, even a mountain of money crumbles. So she immediately pulled a U-turn and haggled to lower it to $10 billion. Meanwhile, in the West, the Thames Club officially outclassed the whole tournament, snatching the Premier League Cup early before the season even ended. The whole team was in raising the roof mode to catch some chicks. The music was banging when suddenly the buzzkill Yeol appeared. The guy was exactly the type of serious youth who forced his teammates to turn off the music and go home to sleep to save energy for the next match. The goal is to win the remaining 5 matches to set an unprecedented undefeated record. Anyone who sneaks out to party and ends up on the tabloids, watch out for me. Some guys in the team had been salty with Yeol for a long time. Since joining the team, Yeol told the coach to order a total ban on ketchup, mayonnaise, and similar sauces in meals. The holy grail foods of life like fried chicken wings, pizza, and fatty cheesy fries were all ruthlessly sent to the island by him, replaced by a healthy menu to maintain form. Teammates looked at their food trays and got depressed, secretly cursing him as the coach's pet. But hate him as they might, they still had to respect him because his skills were at a top-tier level. Big clubs were fighting to roll out the red carpet to invite him. The brothers in the team could only pray day and night for his contract to expire soon so their stomachs could be liberated. But life isn't like a dream. Thames Club announced they successfully renewed the contract with Yeol, making him one of the highest-paid players in the league. He is the first Asian player to lead the league in both goals and assists. Yeol is at the peak of his career. With this global coverage, even the rich fox lady had to drop her jaw because she was so stunned. Meanwhile, the fate of his old teammate Xian Yu was completely opposite. Today, his father gathered the old trophies intending to throw them away, hoping he would stop clinging to the past and live a normal life. Thought Xian Yu would regretfully stop him, but unexpectedly he gathered all the trophies in the room and gave them to his dad to throw away. He apologized for not being able to be as successful as Yeol, but his dad comforted him saying no one knows where life will turn and the future depends on how you live from now on. Just then, the sky suddenly poured heavy rain, and without saying a word, both father and son rushed out to rescue the bag of trophies and bring it back into the house. It turns out they were just acting cool and detached earlier, but deep down, both of them were still very attached to that golden era. Meanwhile, Yeol had become the king of commercials, covering everything from instant noodle packs and bread loaves to chocolate bars. Everywhere you looked, you saw his handsome face. Young people competed to chase and hunt for the idol's goods. As for the beautiful fox sister, she loved money more than men. Hearing rumors that he makes a casual 500 million won per week and pockets $1 billion just shooting one ad, her eyes immediately lit up. Finally, this mobile gold mine was qualified to get on her VIP client list. That's not all. The guy also released an autobiography about overcoming himself that sounded very cringy. His narcissism had reached the highest realm. He sat reading the book he wrote and nodded, praising himself for being so handsome and talented. The manager looked at this scene and got goosebumps all over, but after the self-praise session, he would discipline himself, telling himself absolutely not to sleep on victory. Just landing at the airport, Yeol was surrounded by a sea of fans, lining up long to ask for autographs. The guy was still dragging the bright yellow suitcase gifted by the beautiful sister, but when he saw her, he didn't recognize her at all. Thinking she was a fan asking for an autograph, he scribbled one right on the back of her shirt. The fox lady went crazy and decided to make the guy pay immediately. A snap of her fingers made Yeol's suitcase automatically pop open. Not satisfied yet, she even grabbed the autobiography and scribbled all over his handsome face to retaliate. Before evaporating, she didn't forget to leave a business card like a true pro. At the same time, Xian Yu applied to retest for a lowly 4th Division club, the place that had ruthlessly kicked him to the curb months ago. The old coach refused bluntly because he thought he was past his prime and his skills were trash. While he was totally depressed, he received a text from Yeol asking to meet. That night, Yeol waited at the football field, but Xian Yu didn't come because he was busy delivering food to make a living. Because of his inferiority complex, Xian Yu decided to flake and let his best friend get stood up in hopelessness. Speaking of the rich lady, Eun-ho, while idly waiting for the construction of her own paradise island, she decided to experience life. First was carpentry. Just stepping into the workshop, she criticized the cutting boards and pot holders as tacky stuff. She had to make a chair, and not just a normal chair, but an artistic masterpiece embracing the body's curves. She talked big, but when she started working, oh my god, she held the saw clumsily like a butcher knife. sawing forever without cutting through the wood. Her temper flared up, she snapped her fingers with a click, and voila, she had a fancy chair immediately. Bored with carpentry, she switched to sports rock climbing, but normal climbing was too mediocre. She outclassed the teacher by just flying up to be fast. Still not done, she even debuted in an idol group named Fortnite. But the group didn't last long because she criticized the kids for being too arrogant. Having played all the subjects but Yeol still hadn't summoned her, Eunho wondered, clearly having left the business card granting a wish. So the beautiful sister decided to break straight into Yeol's house. At this moment, he was soaking in an ice bath to recover his muscles. Seeing a stranger in the house, Yeol thought it was a crazy fan or a pervert planning to harass him or take sneak photos. It took a while for Yeol to remember the beautiful fox sister. Eunho immediately took out the business card and started her sales pitch. "You are this rich, so you qualify to be my client. Make a wish." Who knew Yeol would refuse immediately? "I like my life now. I don't want to change anything. Didn't you miss some undefeated title or something? Or let me bless you to be young again like in your 20s. Are your parents or grandparents sick? Let me heal them." Who knew Yeol still didn't want to wish for anything. "My parents passed away when I was small. Grandma also passed away a few years ago." Even so, Eunho still affirmed that one day Yeol would need her help because human life is fragile, easily shattered by trivial things. Just then, the doorbell rang, and the fox lady immediately evaporated like the wind. Yeol went to open the door and froze for 5 seconds. The delivery guy was none other than Xianyu. The reunion of the two best friends wasn't happy but awkward because their fates had turned in completely opposite directions. Xianyu confessed he had quit football. "I didn't retire, I got fired straight up." Hearing that, Yeol was heartbroken for his friend and suddenly remembered the beautiful sister's offer earlier. He blurted out asking if Xianyu had any wish. And this was the moment he would regret deeply later. The next day, reality was completely turned upside down. Xianyu opened his eyes to find himself sitting in a fancy business class seat, surrounded by the aura of a top soccer superstar. Yeol woke up not in a luxurious apartment, but in a small, shabby house. While he was extremely confused, the beautiful sister Eunho appeared and announced that since he made the wish, he had to pay up. His wish had come true. So Yeol officially went empty-handed, falling from the peak of fame to the rock bottom of society. But the tribulation was only just beginning. Rewind to a day earlier, Yeol asked Xianyu if he had any wishes, but he said he would handle it himself, and sadly left right away. The next morning, manager Hong called Yeol to break the bad news that his club, Thames, was at risk of relegation. It turns out the club violated financial fair play rules, so not only was their championship title from last season stripped, but they were also demoted to the lower league. The root of this issue was directly related to Yeol. The club committed accounting fraud to pay for his transfer fee and his massive salary. At this moment, Yeol is at the peak of his game, so of course, he couldn't go down to play in the second division. The only way was to transfer to another team. However, the club absolutely refused to agree and insisted that Yeol needed to stay and lead the team to promotion next season. The ink on the newly signed contract hadn't even dried yet, so legally, he couldn't break it. Manager Hong hurriedly booked plane tickets for both of them to go to England to resolve this case. Meanwhile, Xianyu visited Yeol's grandmother's grave on the anniversary of her death, thinking Yeol was buried in work with the contract. But who knew the guy would show up as soon as his name was mentioned? The unexpected reunion made them both emotional. Truly, their brotherhood is top tier. It turns out that during the time Yeol was abroad, Xianyu frequently visited and took care of his grandmother. Although Yeol expressed his desire to help, Xianyu confessed he was avoiding him because he didn't want to rely on him or borrow money, fearing it would ruin their pure friendship. Yeol confessed that the manager was already in England, but the negotiation situation with the club wasn't looking very promising. He planned to handle the memorial for his grandmother and then head over there immediately. Just as he was about to leave, Yeol dropped the fox Eunho's business card. Now he remembered there was a way to solve the contract issue, so he immediately burned the business card to contact the beautiful sister. In the blink of an eye, a storm kicked up and Eunho appeared right in front of the two of them. "Tell me, what is your grand wish?" That very day, Eunho snapped her fingers and ordered the chairman of the Thames Club to go to a bar to meet manager Hong and negotiate with her. Yeol sat down and told Xianyu everything about the beautiful fox sister. Suddenly, his phone notified him that 100 million won had been withdrawn from his account, not just once, but 6 times in a row. Right at that moment, manager Hong reported the news that everything had been settled with the club chairman. Yeol was allowed to transfer, and he could even choose the team he wanted to go to. Both Yeol and Xianyu were stunned, not expecting everything to be that easy. The next day, Yeol was about to board the plane to England when Xianyu chased after him and confessed that he didn't want to give up on soccer yet. He hoped his friend could ask the beautiful fox sister for a wish to change his fate. Who knew the beautiful sister would refuse harshly because the bigger the wish, the more expensive the price. Since Xianyu was dirt poor, she confirmed that he didn't meet the standards to be a client, and she even scolded Yeol for being insolent and wasting her time. Yeol offered to pay for the wish on Xianyu's behalf, but Eun-ho refused right then and there, because that would mean Yeol was giving the wish to someone else, and she had an unbreakable rule to avoid doing even the smallest good deed. Who knew Yeol would remind her that she once did a good deed when she helped him punish the hit-and-run driver. Being constantly provoked by Yeol, Eun-ho got heated and agreed to grant Seon-yu's wish. But she warned Yeol that she would decide what price he would have to pay. Right after that, Yeol set off for England to handle the transfer. Suddenly, the plane shook violently. Meanwhile, Seon-yu also felt his house shaking as if there were an earthquake. All the furniture in the house gradually vanished into thin air. It turns out the fates of Yeol and Seon-yu were being swapped with each other. Now Seon-yu was the Premier League superstar, and Yeol was the one who had the accident and lost his soccer career. Back to the present, Yeol was totally floored when the beautiful sister declared that his wish had been granted and he had to pay the price for it. She absolutely refused to explain further, leaving Yeol to figure out the current situation for himself. Right after that, a group of young men barged into the house acting all close and tried to drag Yeol to go apologize to the coach. Yeol asked in annoyance what was going on, but they didn't bother to explain and just dragged him into the car. Listening to them talk, it seemed that he had thrown a water bottle at the coach. Yeol innocently talked about the Premier League and the national team, making them think he had gone crazy. Meanwhile, Eun-ho went to meet Chairman Kim, a regular client of hers. She told him she had just tamed a client who was both clueless and rude. Mr. Kim confessed that he didn't meet her because he had a wish. He wanted to break the news that the ancient sword at the GMO Museum had mysteriously disappeared. Knowing Eun-ho often went to the museum and stared at this sword for a long time, he guessed it was very important to her. The sword reminded Eun-ho of the heartbreaking story of her sworn fox sister. Both had cultivated virtue together for 1,000 years to become human. But her sister's life as a human was a series of tragedies. When her family was framed as traitors and hunted by the royal court, she almost lost her life while fleeing with her husband and young child. Luckily, Eun-ho arrived to save her just in time. But Eun-ho foresaw a future where her sister's entire family would be enslaved, her husband beaten to death, and her children starving and sick. Unwilling to watch her sister suffer, the fox ordered a blacksmith to make the Four Tigers sword, a sword with immense power. She gave the sword to her sister and told her to kill her husband to return to being a nine-tailed fox. Who knew that after hearing this, the sister would use her final wish to demand that she never appear in front of her again. The irony is that the sword is the only holy object that can take Eun-ho's life. Back to Yeol's pathetic reality. The guy was dragged by some strangers claiming to be teammates to the field of the 4th Division team, Taehung Citizen. When he met Coach Jong Gil, Yeol casually called the teacher bro and demanded to see the national team coach. As a result, he got chewed out by the coach for daring to beat him up black and blue and then calling him brainless. Yeol was officially kicked off the team and blacklisted from the entire soccer world. The guy was extremely confused, thinking he was being pranked and filmed for social media. But in reality, his life had already blossomed in a different direction. The fox lady was investigating who had stolen the sword, but the security cameras had all stopped working. The museum guard also had his memory wiped. Eun-ho immediately used magic to make him spill the whole truth. It turns out a mysterious man had come to the museum, but the guard collapsed on the spot before he could finish speaking because a seal had been placed on him. Eun-ho realized this magic was cast by a mortal mimicking the power of the gods. Mr. Kim worried that the person intended to harm her, but she wasn't the least bit afraid, just curious about who it was. Meanwhile, Director Lion had just finished his prison sentence and was picked up by the long-haired old man Jang Du-chun. Flashback to 2 years ago when Lion was getting a taste of his own medicine in prison. At that time, Eun-ho's magic was still in effect, so he couldn't lie. Every time, he spilled all the secrets of his cellmates to the guards, and naturally, he got beaten up by them afterward. One time, while he was getting beaten to a pulp, old man Zhang, who had just entered prison, spoke up to stop it. He used magic to kill the lights and then knocked everyone to the floor on the spot. Lion thought he had run into another nine-tailed fox, but Zhang confirmed he was human and handed Lion an exorcism charm, claiming it could neutralize the nine-tailed fox's magic. In return, he wanted Lion to help him pull off the job. Back to the present, old man Zhang picked up Lion at the prison gate and reminded him of their old agreement. It turns out he wanted Lion to be the bait and declared that the fox hunt starts today. Old man Zhang took Lion to a warehouse plastered with talismans, and in the middle of the room was a trap set ready to catch the fox. Lion thought he also had a grudge against the nine-tailed fox, but the old man said a hunter doesn't hunt out of personal vendetta. After chanting for a while, he threw a large piece of meat on the ground, and a beast made entirely of black smoke suddenly appeared and pounced on the meat. It turns out this is the vengeful spirit of starving stray dogs that he uses to hunt foxes. He drew a sword and cut Lion's arm to let fresh blood flow so the stray dog spirit could sniff out the fox scent on him. Meanwhile, Yeol ran home but couldn't open the door. His apartment had become someone else's home. The building security guard said he had never seen his face. Yeol was hauled off to the station for trespassing while still clueless about what had happened. Meanwhile, at the museum, Eunho asked the painter in the painting to draw a portrait of the sword thief for her. Then she went to the police station and ordered the policeman to find the person in the drawing. Here she also met Yeol, who was being detained, and told him the harsh truth that she had swapped his and Xian Yu's fates to maintain balance in the world. According to the rules, for one person to ascend the throne, another must be stripped of their royal robe. After a moment of shock, Yeol demanded a wish to return everything to how it was, but the Fox Lady refused because he had nothing left to exchange for the wish. Saying that, she showed Yeol his friend's luxurious life. At this moment, Xian Yu was also stunned to find himself owning a series of prestigious titles and standing before multi-million-dollar transfer contracts in the Premier League. Eunho revealed that the only way for everything to return to normal is if Xian Yu also voluntarily wishes for it, like Yeol did. That is called the Fate Reversal Wish. But the Fox Lady immediately poured cold water on Yeol. No one at the peak of glory would want to return to a life of poverty. Finally, Yeol was bailed out of the police station by coach Jong Gil. Although very angry with Yeol, he still agreed to let him return to the team, hoping he would help the home team get promoted to the 3rd division this season. Yeol listened and got PTSD, because for him, having to play in the 4th division was no different than a humiliation. While stuck in a dead end, Yeol received a call from Xian Yu. The guy thanked Yeol profusely because his life suddenly turned a brilliant page beyond imagination. At this moment, Yeol broke the shocking truth that their fates had been swapped. He urged Xian Yu to find the wish-granting business card to swap their fates back, but Xian Yu had already tasted the flavor of wealth. As for Xian Yu's dad, he was dreaming about huge transfer fees and a new car. Therefore, Xian Yu begged Yeol to give him one more month to enjoy the spotlight before returning the fate. Yeol screamed in despair, but his best friend hung up straight away. Yeol rushed to the airport to go to England to settle the score with his friend, who knew the airport staff would announce that his passport had expired. While he was about to explode, the nine-tailed fox lady appeared again and mocked Yeol's cringe friendship. She also scolded him for being arrogant. But seeing Yeol's remorseful and suffering attitude, the beautiful sister finally softened her heart. She promised that when he woke up tomorrow morning, everything would return to normal and told Yeol to consider this a free lesson for his arrogance. Yeol nodded furiously after hearing that, but as soon as the fox lady was out of sight, he swore that from now on, even if his leg broke, he would never wish for anything again. Just leaving the airport, Yeol got into a taxi. Unexpectedly, it was the car of the sorcerer Zhang. He was kidnapped by him and taken to an abandoned warehouse. Old man Zhang interrogated Yeol about the wish-granting business card, but he didn't have it on him. He tried to call Xian Yu for help, but the guy was busy shopping for luxury watches and limited edition cars with his dad, so he ignored the call. Yeol turned to advise them to think carefully. Wishes don't turn out the way you think. Who knew Lion would declare that their goal was not a wish, but to destroy the nine-tailed fox. Just then, Xian Yu called back, but worried that the fox sister would be in danger. Yeol didn't say anything to Xian Yu anymore. He confessed that he didn't like the nine-tailed fox lady either, but there was no need to kill her. Before he could finish his sentence, he was knocked unconscious by Lion on the spot. Right at that moment, the fox lady was sitting eating cake and drinking tea when she felt her spiritual power drop. When she went to the warehouse where Yeol was being held, as soon as she appeared, she fell right into the spiritual trap that the sorcerer had painstakingly researched for many years. Old man Zhang pulled out the four-tiger sword, which was said to be able to sever even fates destined by heaven and destroy creatures thousands of years old like the fox lady. Suddenly, he dealt her a fatal blow. Thought the fox lady was done for, but who knew she was unharmed? It turns out what the sorcerer stabbed was just a scapegoat doll. Eunho immediately unleashed a skill, knocking the two villains down in pain. It turns out she had investigated Zhang's past beforehand. 10 years ago, he was a successful fund manager, but then he went bankrupt and wandered around scamming people. His old house was full of wandering, vengeful spirits. Eunho sarcastically remarked that his fate would be a tragic death, so she didn't even bother dirtying her hands. Saying that, she snapped her fingers to send the two villains to the street. At this moment, Yeol was heavily injured, blood flowing all over the ground. Eunho started to worry because if Yeol died while their fates were swapped, she would be in big trouble with the gods. Therefore, she was forced to act to save Yeol from death. Yeol woke up, thinking the fox sister had sent those two guys to meet their ancestors, but Eunho affirmed she never killed humans. Then suddenly the girl apologized to Yeol that he was dragged into this because of her. She was about to take him home when suddenly her fox bead cracked and crumbled, and her spiritual power completely disappeared. The fox lady fainted in Yeol's arms. In her coma, Eunho dreamed of the last time she met her sister Jiamho. On the day she passed away, Jiamho had chosen to live a life of human suffering. Witnessing her children get sick and pass away, her family shattered, her husband lost, and finally being abandoned until she was exhausted. Eunho blamed her sister for enduring everything without ever once using a wish to ask for her help. The sister, now old and senile, only knew how to praise her sister for being beautiful. Eunho firmly declared she would never become human, never love a human, never live in suffering and die in despair like her sister. Right after that, the sister took her last breath in solitude, leaving the younger sister in shock and pain. When she woke up, seeing Yeol keeping vigil beside her, seeing the bright sunlight, she immediately snapped her fingers to cast a spell, but nothing happened. She snapped back and forth, but everything remained motionless. Until she realized she had turned into a human, she screamed in Yeol's face that it was all his fault. It turns out that saving Yeol's life was counted by the heavenly court as a virtuous deed, qualifying her to become human. Yeol fainted on the spot after hearing that. Because if the beautiful sister no longer had magic, who would turn him back into a soccer superstar? At the same time, the evil sorcerer left the motel. He instructed Lion to keep moving, not staying anywhere for too long so the fox wouldn't catch their scent. Meanwhile, Eun-ho and Yeol went to the temple to question Lord Big Dipper, but he had left since last night. The abbot passed on the Lord's message that since she was now living in the human realm, she needed a name. He named her Kim Ok-sun, meaning pure jade, and gave her an official citizen ID card. So frustrated with the country bumpkin name and the weak human body, Ok-sun planned to burn down Lord Big Dipper's shrine just to vent her anger. Yeol tried to stop her, but it didn't work. As a result, the fox lady got hauled off to the station by the police for attempted arson. In the holding cell, Ok-sun asked Yeol about the Four Tigers sword, the only thing that can sever Heaven's fate to switch his destiny back. Yeol's face went blank because he was in such a panic yesterday that he left the sword at the old sorcerer's warehouse. That very night, Yeol got his juniors from the team to go to the warehouse to look for the sword, but the place had been cleaned out completely, as if nothing had ever happened. The next morning, when the police officer called her name to let her go, the fox lady still stubbornly denied that country-sounding pure jade name and insisted she wasn't Kim Ok-sunday. However, since she had no magic left and nowhere else to go, she reluctantly walked out of the cell looking totally lost. Just when she thought she was abandoned, Yeol drove up in a beat-up car to pick her up, making Ok-sun so happy she almost cried. He confirmed that he needed her now more than ever and urged her to get in the car to go to Mount Sirak immediately. In the car, Yeol said he went back to the warehouse but didn't see the Four Tigers sword, but found an old newspaper from 1997 about a couple saved by a young girl claiming to be a fox on Mount Sirak. The fox lady said they were spreading nonsense because if there was another fox alive, she would have sensed it. But before coming here, Yeol had found that couple to confirm it. They recounted that in the middle of a freezing winter night, a beautiful girl appeared and saved them, also saying she was accumulating virtue to become human. Ok-sun was still skeptical because she couldn't sense the aura of her own kind. But both of them still decided to hit the road because they believed this was an arrangement by the powers above to guide them. Meanwhile, in faraway England, his friend Xian-yu was enjoying the most glorious moments of his life. He officially put pen to paper to sign a contract with Londonham Football Club amidst the pursuit of a series of top teams in the world. Xian-yu's dad was over the moon because he was about to upgrade to a luxury car, while the guy himself enjoyed the aura of a superstar. Now he didn't want to return the position to his friend at all. Just stepping foot at the base of Mount Sirak, Ok-sun saw a bear statue and recognized an old acquaintance. Even though the sun was about to set, she still insisted on climbing the mountain immediately to get lost in hopes of meeting that other fox lady. But life isn't like a dream. The human body made her ache all over, taking one step and gasping for air 3 times. Other climbers, seeing the two of them dressed so thinly, felt pity for them. Someone shoved food into the fox lady's hand, while another gave them a stick and warm clothes because they thought they were in a desperate situation. A while later, the rescue team rushed in to detain them because they received a report that a couple was planning to log off. After being escorted down the mountain, the two stopped at a budget diner. Ok-sun was now so tired she didn't even have the strength to hold a spoon, her hand trembling so much that food splashed everywhere. Seeing that, Yeol considerately picked up each piece of meat and fed her every spoonful of soup. After eating and drinking her fill, the fox lady slumped onto the table and dozed off. Seeing her sleeping so soundly, Yeol didn't have the heart to wake her up. Gazing at her face, Yeol suddenly felt his heart skip a beat, but the guy immediately brushed it off and woke her up. The fox lady was having a nightmare. She saw herself being stabbed by the Four Tigers sword. Right at that moment, she woke up in a panic. Eun-ho immediately questioned him about the sword, but Yeol swore he didn't have it. Hearing that, the beautiful sister suspected she might have foreseen the future. However, after thinking it over, she realized her spiritual powers and magical abilities were all gone, so it must have just been a meaningless dream from being too tired. Even so, she was still annoyed with this bold human. How dare he hurt her in her dream? It was getting dark, so the two had to drag themselves to find a place to rest. But on a holiday, all rooms were booked, leaving only one place called One Night Moonlight Motel. The beautiful sister criticized this motel as a dump and demanded a 5-star hotel to match her aristocratic status. She even suspected Yeol had some shady intentions bringing her here, making the guy fume with anger. Sister, you are centuries older than me. Finally, both of them had to check into this shabby motel simply because there was no other choice. Just after washing her face, the fox lady jumped when she saw Yol approaching with a shiny knife. Turns out the guy just grabbed the knife to peel fruit. Yol took the chance to tease her. "You probably feel guilty for treating me badly, so you're having weird dreams, right?" After a day of exhausting hiking, Yunho's legs were so sore she couldn't lift them. Seeing that, Yol immediately massaged and attentively applied medicine for the beautiful sister. Yunho acted haughty at first, but it felt so good she lay still and enjoyed it. Late at night, Yunho tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Wandering out to the yard, she saw Yale sitting alone drinking beer, looking very gloomy. He confided that this was what he had always wished for, the freedom to drink beer without worrying about the strict training regime of a world-class athlete. Yunho also demanded to try a can because now that she was human, she wanted to know what being drunk felt like. While slightly tipsy, she told Yol about Gyumho. Her fox sister had become human and passed away due to old age. Yol saw Yunho shivering, so he took off his jacket and draped it over her. Yunho insisted this was a human flirting tactic. Even though Yale corrected her immediately that it was just manners, she stubbornly kept her narcissism, believing that with her beauty and charm, it was natural for Yale to fall for her. The two just kept bickering, and then watched the beautiful starry night sky together. Meanwhile, in London, despite living in glory and wealth, Xian Yu always lived in fear that his current life was just an illusion, and it would vanish when he woke up. The next morning, Yunho and Yol decided to go up the mountain with the goal of getting lost to find another nine-tailed fox. The trouble was that today, hikers were as crowded as a festival. Yunho got annoyed because with this crowd, someone would rescue them within an hour. How could they meet a monster? So the fox lady switched to another path, deliberately going into the most remote area. Suddenly, she slipped and almost fell. Luckily, Yol caught her in time. Their eyes met, creating a romantic moment for a few seconds, then both awkwardly pretended nothing happened. They continued walking diligently all day, and finally, when it started to get dark, they achieved their goal of genuinely getting lost. While shivering from cold and fatigue, Yol gave Yunho a coffee candy to stay alert. Then he started thinking about the worst-case scenario. What if no nine-tailed fox came to save them? Maybe the fox in the article from 28 years ago had also become human. Although Yunho loudly denied that possibility, deep down inside, she wavered too. When both decided to give up and turn back, disaster struck. Yol fell down a slope, sprained his ankle, and his phone battery died completely. Just at this critical moment, a girl appeared. Yunho's smile faded before she could even celebrate because the girl looked exactly like her sister Gyumho. She emotionally teared up calling sister, but the girl acted like she didn't know her, saying she was just a fox cultivating on this mountain. Yunho realized this was just a cruel joke and started screaming, cursing the mountain god for arranging for her to meet someone identical to her sister to mock her fate. She went to the cliff edge screaming for the mountain god but received no answer. Meanwhile, Yol had his ankle healed by the fox and found Yunho. The fox took them both back to her cave by a warm fire. The kind girl even brought a bunch of wild vegetables to offer her guests. To please the fox, Yol tried to stuff the vegetables into his mouth but couldn't swallow them. As for Yunho, she looked at the pile of vegetables speechless, asking if she was a goat or something to only eat grass. The fox explained that because she had lived on the mountain too long, she knew every animal, so she didn't have the heart to eat the meat of her friend's descendants. Yol decided to explain that his reason for coming here wasn't getting lost but to find her and beg for a wish. In faraway London, Xian Yu saw everything around him gradually disappear. He panicked and screamed, but right after that, everything returned to its place. It turned out the fox girl enthusiastically tried using magic to help Yol, but the result was ineffective. It turns out this girl had cultivated for 500 years, but had only grown 8 tails, so correctly speaking, she was an 8-tailed fox. Seeing Yol confused, the beautiful sister Yunho immediately gave him a crash course. This fox hadn't cultivated enough to become a true 9-tailed fox. Because she was missing a tail, she was still more animal than human. Her magical power was weak, only knowing petty tricks, unable to cast spells to swap fates. When she learned Yunho used to be a true 9-tailed fox, the 8-tailed fox happily clung to her, calling her sister. Because the mountain god once said someone would come to take care of her after 200 years of waiting. She even excitedly asked Yunho the quickest way to become human. But the beautiful sister remembered the painful human life of her sister Gyumho, so she immediately shut down that dream. She affirmed she wasn't the person the girl was waiting for and told her never to appear in front of her again. She couldn't even take care of her own mortal body. Hurt, the 8-tailed fox left without a word of farewell. Elsewhere, Leon was still moving and changing hotels constantly as instructed by the old sorcerer. He started researching information about 9-tailed foxes and even requested his secretary to investigate his own accident file from 9 years ago. Back to the young couple walking home, a new disaster struck. The car ran out of gas, phones died, and the climax was Yol discovering he had lost his wallet at some unknown point. Both fell into a truly penniless situation in the middle of a deserted road. Yol suggested going to Yunho's house to get money, but was floored again to learn her house was on a mountain on the North Korean side. She said back when she had magic, she could fly from home to bustling Seoul in a few steps, so she didn't bother buying a house in the capital to waste money. With no other way, the two had to walk until their legs gave out. Since they had no money to buy sunscreen, the beautiful sister picked up a tattered umbrella to cover her face from the burning sun, looking both funny and pitiful. Luckily, they met a kind person who gave them a ride. Yunho, touched, promised that when she regained her powers, she would bless this driver to win the lottery jackpot. Yeol wanted to gift him tickets to the Champions League final. Yeol suggested that since she lived so long, she must know a few people who could help them now. But Yoonho criticized him for being human but not understanding his own kind. To her, humans couldn't be trusted, especially those with money and power. Favors are forgotten quickly, but grudges are remembered forever. If they found out she lost her powers, they would find ways to retaliate against her. Just arriving home, Xian Yu was waiting. Seeing Yeol with the nine-tailed fox, Xian Yu thought he was about to be swapped back to his old identity any moment. He apologized for letting greed blind him and promised to return the fate to Yeol, only asking for 1 more week to play the international match next week. Yeol pretended to cheerfully agree, saying this was also a chance for him to take a break. While Xian Yu was tearing up with emotion, the 8-tailed fox suddenly appeared. "Sister, I found a way. I found a way to turn you from human back into a 9-tailed fox. That means he can also return to his old life, right?" So the secret of Yeol and Yoonho was exposed in front of Xian Yu, making all 3 freeze on the spot. Xian Yu immediately understood that this friend wasn't as good as he thought. He just had no way to reclaim his fate. Seeing Xian Yu interested in how she could turn back into a fox, Yoonho asked him directly what his intentions were. "Are you planning to sabotage this?" But Xian Yu hurriedly clarified that he just wanted to help. Seeing the tense situation, Yeol jumped in to defuse it. Who knew Yoonho would tell the 8-tailed fox to wipe Xian Yu's memory? She obediently did as told, and Xian Yu immediately forgot everything that had just happened. Just then, his dad called, yelling his head off because Xian Yu returned to the country without asking the club for permission, offending the coach right after signing the contract. Right at this moment, a few moments from earlier suddenly flashed in Xian Yu's mind. It turns out that because the 8-tailed fox's spiritual power wasn't strong enough, Xian Yu's memory wasn't completely wiped. Meanwhile, Yeol was still concerned that wiping Xian Yu's memory was excessive. Yoonho enlightened Yeol that if he suddenly vanished, Xian Yu would naturally take over his fate forever. When he realizes that, what will happen? Humans are all equally selfish. But Yoonho also knew the 8-tailed fox's magic was limited, so Xian Yu would remember bit by bit in the coming days or months. Therefore, they had to return to how things were before he remembered and tried something shady. Done with Yeol, the beautiful sister turned to ask the younger sister, the 8-tailed fox. She revealed the method she came up with was to swap her fate with Yoonho's. Before she could finish her sentence, she transformed into an 8-tailed fox. Elsewhere, Lion received a report from his secretary about the investigation into the victim of the car accident. After that accident, Yeol took a year to recover, and his soccer career gradually faded. Now he is unemployed and broke. Meanwhile, the witness to the accident, Xian Yu, has become a soccer superstar. Leon immediately recognized the anomaly here. Clearly Yeol was the 9-tailed fox's client, so he couldn't be poor and crushed. Back to the 8-tailed fox, it turned out she transformed into a fox because her spiritual power was depleted after casting the spell. As soon as she ate instant noodles, she quickly recovered. Yeol urged her to continue the story from earlier. How to swap her fate with Yoonho's? It turns out she wants to become a 9-tailed fox. Then she will have enough spiritual power to cast a spell to swap fates with Yoonho. Yoonho will become a 9-tailed fox, and she will get to be human as she dreamed. Then Yoonho will help Yeol regain his fate by dispelling the magic on him and Xian Yu. Yeol was overjoyed. Who knew Yoonho would pour cold water on him? The beautiful sister didn't want the 8-tailed fox to be tricked into following her sister Guillaume's footsteps, becoming human only to live a painful human life. She said she had found a way to turn back on her own, so the girl didn't need to worry. Yeol got impatient hearing that, saying Yoonho couldn't decide this for her. Seeing the two arguing fiercely, the 8-tailed fox was confused, not knowing who to listen to. To stop the younger sister's intention of becoming human, Yoonho decided to take her to witness the dark sides of society. The first stop was the police station, full of criminals ranging from robbery and fraud to assault. Yoonho wanted her to see that the human world is a den of demons, and a naive girl like her would soon be cheated until she was penniless. Contrary to Yoonho's negative view, Yeol wanted to show the girl better things, so he took the 3 of them to a luxury restaurant. The fox sister, used to eating wild vegetables, was extremely excited because she had never seen so much delicious food. However, Yoonho continued to pour cold water by mentioning social class division, saying there are people who work hard all their lives but still can't afford a meal like this. Hearing that, the dishwasher dropped a bowl in shock, resulting in all 3 getting kicked out of the restaurant. The next location was the amusement park, a place the fox sister had always dreamed of visiting. Just stepping foot there, the girl was like a fish in water, partying hard with all kinds of thrill rides. From roller coasters to the creepy haunted house, she took them all on with a cheerful face, knowing no fear. Completely contrary to that energy, the beautiful sister Yoonho, with her weak mortal body, officially collapsed. After a few aerial loops, she was so motion sick she was dizzy and vomiting all over the place. While the older sister was exhausted and limp, the younger sister was still full of energy, demanding to play more at all costs. Yeol confessed this was his first time at an amusement park. His childhood was full of sweat and tears on the soccer field, plus his poor background made the dream of hanging out a luxury. He emotionally said he would definitely engrave today's memories in his heart. Hearing that, Yoonho took the chance to show off to regain her form. She declared these games were nothing. She used to experience things much more top tier and stimulating. Who knew? Just as she finished her sentence, Yeol exposed her, saying she looked like the one having the most fun here. While busy teasing each other, Yeol accidentally saw Yoonho's heel was scraped from walking too much. Seeing his pained expression, Yoonho was confused. Shouldn't he hate her to the bone because she was the one who caused him to be in this miserable state? But Yeol unexpectedly dropped a flirty line that went straight to the heart. Now you are the only person I can rely on. Please care about me a little, and I will take care of you too. But the very next second, he hurriedly corrected that he was only worried that if something happened to her, his life couldn't go back to how it was. Just finishing his sentence, he hurriedly ran to buy a band-aid, leaving the beautiful sister so confused she was speechless. Meanwhile, a highly skilled shaman divined a bad card reading that she was about to confront someone bringing bad omens. The very next second, the fox hunter appeared, demanding to capture a wandering spirit the shaman was sheltering. She warned about his karma being as deep as the sea for daring to go against heaven's will. But in the end, he killed her and took the spirit away. Back at the park, Yoon-ho was reminiscing about hundreds of years ago between her and her sister Guillaume-ho. The two sisters had a bet on who would become human first. Back then, Yoon-ho wanted to dig wild ginseng to sell for money or sneak into the king's dream to ask for a promotion for the scholar her sister secretly loved. But Guillaume-ho's wish was very simple. It was hoping her sister would diligently cultivate to become human soon. Then the two sisters would live together in a village, making rice cakes in spring, salting kimchi in winter, and growing old together. Back to reality, the eight-tailed fox sister still yearned to be human. Even knowing human life could be full of suffering, short and fragile as a mayfly, she still wanted to live a truly intense life, swept away by the flow of emotions, crying one minute and laughing the next, even being tormented by regret, instead of living bland, memorable less days on the mountain. Yoon-ho heard that and remembered the final moments of Guillaume-ho's life. She said she had lived a life with no regrets and hoped Yoon-ho would also live her life to the fullest. Yeol returned and saw Yoon-ho sitting alone with a very thoughtful expression. He gently put the band-aid on her heel, and then suddenly realized the eight-tailed fox sister had disappeared. Yoon-ho reported she had returned to the mountain and she had decided to swap fates with the eight-tailed fox. Yeol excitedly thought he was about to get his old life back. Who knew Yoon-ho would pour cold water on him, saying that to swap, the eight-tailed fox had to grow enough 9 tails, which theoretically takes about 100 years. Yeol heard this and wanted to pass out cold because by the time that happens he'd probably be pushing up daisies. But Yoon-ho reassured him that she's a pro, so she has some tricks up her sleeve to speed up the process. Just as they got back to Yeol's rooftop apartment, Yoon-ho dissed the place, saying it was no different from a rat hole, hurting the guy's pride and making him brag about his villa with a pool and movie theater in England. The two continued bickering about who got to sleep on the bed and who got to shower first. Finally, Yeol had to give in to the senior citizen Yoon-ho. Although Yoon-ho claimed she was full earlier, when night came, her mortal stomach betrayed her. So Yeol had to go to the kitchen to cook noodles. At first, the guy acted all high and mighty, saying he hadn't touched this stuff in 10 years. But after tasting one bite, he polished off the whole pot. Yoon-ho demanded he cook 2 more packs. Yeol even added 3 eggs and mixed in rice to satisfy his cravings. The result was that the next morning, both their faces were swollen like soggy dumplings, and they had to use cold spoons to depuff their faces. Meanwhile, Coach Jong-gil was having a massive headache because he was missing his center forward, Yeol. Although his teammates really wanted to call him back to the team, the coach still held a grudge over the incident where the guy acted arrogant and declared, "Unless I die, otherwise don't ever mention Yeol's name again." To help the eight-tailed fox sister accumulate spiritual power and quickly grow more tails, Yoon-ho proposed a good deeds project. It turns out the eight-tailed sister used magic to connect their souls, so that whenever Yoon-ho did a good deed, the girl on the mountain would receive the magical power. The beautiful sister's first plan was fishing for people on the riverbank, meaning sitting and waiting to see if anyone jumped in so she could save them. Yeol heard this and was speechless because he thought this method was basically just sitting around waiting for a miracle. So Yoon-ho immediately switched to plan B. She took Yeol to a building full of loan sharks and gambling cheats, demanding he set it on fire so she could rush in to put out the fire and save people to earn merit. Of course, Yeol flatly refused because he didn't want to become a villain. Right at that moment, a real fire broke out at a nearby orphanage. Without hesitating, Yeol and Yoon-ho rushed into the fire to save the kids. In the thick smoke, the two worked together to get the kids out. However, when she discovered a little girl was still trapped, Yoon-ho went back inside and almost didn't make it out because the door got jammed. Once the little girl was saved, Yeol couldn't see Yoon-ho anywhere, so he hurriedly went back inside to find her. Just as the ceiling collapsed, Yeol appeared in the nick of time to play the hero saving the beauty. Yoon-ho woke up in the hospital and panicked looking for Yeol. When she saw he was safe and sound, she couldn't help but scold him for making her worry. But right after that, she rushed to hug him in tears. "You said I have to take care of you. If you die, I'll kill you." Episode 6 has ended. But the teaser for the next episode reveals a new problem arising. Even though they did good deeds, the eight-tailed fox sisters' magical power didn't increase at all, and Shan Yu's memory seems to be gradually returning, signaling bigger troubles ahead. After the accident, Yeol was lucky to only have minor external scratches. Talk about good people being blessed by heaven. But the old doctor with a face resembling Lord Big Dipper warned him to be more careful because he wouldn't always be as lucky as this time. The fox girl Yoon-ho was frantic, running everywhere looking for him, scolding him with her mouth but hurting in her heart. When she saw he was still safe and sound, Yoon-ho was both happy and angry, even threatening to deal with him if he dared to actually die. The two made up and left the hospital together to go home. On the way back, the atmosphere suddenly became incredibly awkward. Unexpectedly, Yeol moved closer, making Yoon-ho freeze. It turned out he just picked a leaf stuck in her hair. Although she acted cool on the outside, inside Yoon-ho felt her heart racing, scolding herself for being shy in front of a human who was still wet behind the ears like him. Right then, a bicycle riding recklessly almost hit Yoon-ho. Yeol quickly pulled her close to protect her. This action startled and confused the fox lady so much that she had to snap, "Don't walk so close to me." When Yeol questioned her reason, Yoon-ho dissed him, saying he looked no different from a beggar because of his tattered clothes, only missing a cup to beg for money. Yeol retorted that she also looked disheveled and not much better than him. Not wanting to continue strolling in such a shabby state, Yeol decided they both had to buy new clothes before going home. Yoon-ho immediately took the opportunity, demanding to buy all sorts of other things. The two dragged each other into a large shopping mall. While Yeol worried about not having enough money, Yoon-ho boldly told him to just swipe the card because they would be rich again later. She started a shopping spree without breaks, from high-end silk pajamas to expensive soap. She even demanded to buy a giant TV while the house was tiny. But life isn't a dream. The bank card reported insufficient funds, putting both in an embarrassing situation where they had to return everything. Elsewhere, Xianyu was signing books for fans when suddenly Leon rushed in presenting the fox's wish card. Recognizing the person who hit him years ago, Xianyu rushed to punch him straight in the face. But this guy wasn't angry at all. He seemed to be plotting something and wanted to use Xianyu as an intermediary to deal with the fox lady. At this time, Xianyu also started dreaming of strange memory fragments that he wasn't sure were his or if someone had implanted them. Back to the reality of making a living, Yoon-ho reassured Yeol that feeding him was as easy as flipping a hand because she had learned all sorts of trades over centuries, from carpentry and coffee making to baking and knitting, even knowing foreign languages. Yeol wanted to believe it very much, but he still felt incredibly uneasy inside. Right then, the eight-tailed fox sister suddenly appeared, announcing that her magical power was still stagnant, not increasing a bit. Even though Yoon-ho had done good deeds, both started to panic, not understanding where they went wrong. Yeol started to correct Yoon-ho's mindset. He believed the reason the eight-tailed fox hadn't increased her power was because of the coping attitude toward doing good deeds. He advised Yoon-ho to do good deeds sincerely without profit. Listening to Yeol, Yoon-ho went with him to volunteer at a nursing home. The young couple's first job here was washing and drying blankets. Yoon-ho started to taste hardship while struggling with heavy, soaked blankets. Yeol constantly reminded her to keep a good attitude to hope for magical power, while the fox lady kept grumbling because her expensive clothes were getting stained and her legs were tired. The situation became ironic when the dryer suddenly broke down. Yoon-ho suspected Yeol was intentionally setting up a romantic drama scene so they could trample blankets in a basin of water together. When seeing elderly couples taking care of each other, Yoon-ho wondered why humans could love each other for so long without getting bored. At this point, Yeol confessed he always got dumped because he loved soccer more than his girlfriends. Yoon-ho also revealed the reason she could never love a human. She once witnessed another fox ruin her whole life just because she accidentally gave her heart to a man. Seeing her look gloomy, Yeol comforted her. Even if we are 2 goals down in the first half, we just need to score 3 goals in the second half to win. However, Yoon-ho felt patronized, so she straight up used the hose to spray water directly at Yeol, making the guy hide behind a pile of blankets. As a result, both were scolded severely by the nursing home staff for soaking the pile of blankets. While Yeol profusely apologized, Yoon-ho still acted stubbornly, arguing back that with the sun shining brightly, there was no worry about blankets not drying. Because the clothes he was wearing were soaked, Yeol had to go shirtless to wring out his shirt while complaining that his body had somewhat degraded lately due to neglecting training. When the fox lady accidentally locked eyes with that toned, luscious body, her heart suddenly fluttered indescribably. Both embarrassed and confused, she snapped at him to put his shirt on quickly. But in the panic and pushing, both accidentally slipped and fell to the ground. The moment 4 eyes met at close range, the surrounding atmosphere immediately thickened, filled with ambiguity, leaving both unable to utter a word. Right at the climax, Yeol's teammates suddenly burst in, seeing him shirtless next to a strange girl in a public place. The whole group dropped their jaws, thinking he was doing something inappropriate. To save his honor and avoid misunderstanding, Yeol had to claim Yoon-ho was his girlfriend. While everyone was in total shock, the fox lady dropped another bomb, declaring they were about to get married. Only then did Yeol know this nursing home was the sponsor for their soccer team. Every month, they came here to volunteer serving the elderly. Everyone curiously asked why Yeol never visited his grandmother. Everyone knew his grandmother was also here. The guy, skeptical, ran to find her and burst into tears seeing his grandmother still alive and healthy, even playing cards very enthusiastically with the coach. Seeing her in the flesh, Yeol couldn't hold back tears, rushing to hug her tightly to everyone's surprise. After the emotional reunion, Yeol had a private talk with Coach Yong-gil. It turned out that even though Yeol played poorly and was frequently scolded by the teacher, Yong-gil secretly kept his name on the team roster. The purpose was for his grandmother to continue enjoying the hospital fee discount for relatives of team members. Outwardly, he said it was for his grandmother's sake, and still acted like he hated him. But this action proved the teacher was extremely kind, and always cared for his students in his own way. Yeol sat beside his grandmother, blaming himself that no matter in which life, he couldn't give her a fulfilled life. Yeol felt pained because when he had money, she was gone, and when she was here, he was struggling in the 4th division. But his grandmother surprised him by taking out a stack of photos, boasting that she was the most envied person in the nursing home. In this life, Yeol was an extremely filial grandson, taking her everywhere to see beautiful scenery and eat delicious food. Yeol couldn't hold back tears of happiness realizing he had a special dream with his grandmother. Meanwhile, an old man suddenly rushed in to attack the fox lady, mouth constantly saying it was all her fault. Yoon-ho was shocked to realize this was probably an old client to whom she had done something wrong in the past. Meanwhile, Leon and his assistant went to a dilapidated crooked house, exuding a gloomy and eerie vibe everywhere, to search for the long-haired sorcerer. According to the neighbors, he moved here 10 years ago, but not long after, his wife and daughter both died tragically and mysteriously. Since then, he became half crazy and went into hiding. Lion was desperate to find his whereabouts to carry out his plot. Returning home after a long tiring day, Yeol wanted to faint seeing he was officially broke. The meager remaining money was only enough for both to live frugally for a month. The guy scratched his head, not understanding why in this life he was so poor he didn't even have a decent house or car. Even so, seeing Yoon-ho moping in the room, Yeol personally prepared a lavish dinner with grilled meat to comfort her. Yoon-ho smelled the aroma, and her eyes lit up immediately, but still teased that she liked pork belly better. Both sat down by the grill, putting aside worries to enjoy a rare, warm moment. She confided in Yeol that being forced to become human, stripped of magic, and facing old mistakes she herself didn't clearly remember was actually a cruel punishment. Yoon-ho felt guilty for dragging Yeol into this mess, making him suffer the punishment along with her. However, Yeol didn't think so. Previously, he always thought money and status were the most important things. But since reuniting with his grandmother, he realized family is more precious than anything. This time for him was like a special dream. Even if he returns to his old identity later, these distinct memories will forever be his source of happiness. Yoon-ho confessed that although being human has many troubles, there is one very good thing. She frankly admitted that perhaps because she now has a human heart, every time she sees him, her heart races. A feeling humans call romantic flutter. Not letting him react, the fox lady launched the decisive blow. "Yeol, I think I need to date you." Yeol heard this like a bolt from the blue, froze for a few seconds. Conversely, the culprit who just dropped the love bomb was strangely calm. Yoon-ho looked him up and down, thinking this appearance was acceptable. Bringing him along probably wouldn't be embarrassing. After all, she now has a human body and accidentally developed some strange flutters, so she might as well try dating once to know what it's like in this world. Yeol didn't find it sweet, but felt like it was a forced dating notice. The fox lady's shallow reason made him extremely let down, intending to refuse to protect a bit of self-respect. But Yoon-ho didn't let him resist, ordering him to obediently cooperate. For her, this was a new hobby she definitely had to experience. Having defined the dating relationship, Yoon-ho started to be unusually proactive. Early in the morning, she lay next to him, making Yeol startle awake, his annoyance completely vanishing. Not letting him react, the fox lady ordered him to lie down, extending his arm for her to use as a pillow. At breakfast, Yoon-ho demanded both perform the proper couple ritual of feeding each other. While other people's love starts from natural vibrations, the intimacy between these two was like a forced dating procedure. Just like that, the two reluctantly dated while continuing the mission to accumulate magical power for the eight-tailed fox. Yoon-ho analyzed that doing good deeds to accumulate virtue requires persistence to see clear results, so she decided that from next week, she would regularly go to the nursing home to volunteer. Besides, she also wondered why that old man at the nursing home held such a deep grudge against her. Determined to find the truth, Yoon-ho deliberately went to his room to confront him. But upon arrival, she received news that he had passed away yesterday. Going with Yeol to the funeral, Yoon-ho was shocked to hear the old man's son recount the story from years ago. It turned out at that time, the old man had poured all his effort into researching a promising new drug. Seeing a tasty bait, Chairman Kim got greedy and asked Yoon-ho to use her prophetic ability to see if this drug would be successful in the market. Fortune-telling was just a small matter in the palm of her hand, so Yoon-ho accepted immediately. After receiving a firm confirmation from Yoon-ho that the new drug would win big, Mr. Kim was determined to seize ownership from the old man. Yoon-ho used mind control magic to force the old man to sign the agreement transferring his brainchild. Holding the compensation money in hand, he had to witness the drug he painstakingly researched successfully launch and rake in money in the market. The old man gradually fell into madness. Since then, he lived in obsession, frantically rushing into research with the hope of finding another even more potent drug. He poured all his family's savings into new research but failed miserably. After understanding the full story, Yoon-ho felt extremely guilty. She told Yeol to take some money to give to the old man's family as an apology. Right at this moment, the eight-tailed fox suddenly appeared and announced that her magical power had clearly increased. Yoon-ho suddenly woke up. She understood that heaven let her go through all this for a reason. It turns out the things she previously thought were neither evil nor good had silently shifted others' entire lives. She realized that as long as she sincerely corrected the mistakes she caused in the past, her magical power would slowly recover. Thinking everything through, Yoon-ho sought out Chairman Kim, the one who years ago got filthy rich thanks to the new drug. To suppress the opponent, she borrowed the eight-tailed fox's magic to pretend to still be a nine-tailed fox with infinite power. After a mysterious cloud of smoke, Kim recognized Yoon-ho and immediately shuddered in fear. Yoon-ho went straight to the point, demanding he correct the mistake from years ago. Kim heard this and thought she came to extort compensation money, so his attitude was somewhat disdainful. Who knew Yoon-ho would force him to gift the company headquarters building to the old man's family instead of condolence money? Hearing this, Mr. Kim immediately jumped up, turning to blame Yoon-ho for being untrustworthy. He argued that years ago, to seize the new drug formula, he had already paid her a huge service fee. Yoon-ho didn't have time to preach morality. She threatened that if he didn't know his place and follow orders, he would taste suffering. Right then, the eight-tailed fox cast a spell, causing the glass on the table to explode. Witnessing that terrifying scene, Chairman Kim was panicked and reluctantly agreed. Job done. Yoon-ho's mood was so euphoric that the eight-tailed fox sister invited the gang for a lavish buffet to celebrate the victory. Who knew Yeol would embarrassingly say he had emptied his pockets to give condolence money to the old man's family? To earn money for food for both, Yeol decided to put aside his ego to return to the pitch. Although this time it was just a low-level amateur tournament, at least there was income to cover living expenses. As soon as the ball rolled, Yeol's skillful technique immediately shined. He single-handedly carried the team to pull off a spectacular draw until the final whistle blew. The coach was as happy as winning the lottery. Who knew he would see an unexpectedly somber atmosphere? It turned out Yeol was roasting his teammates for playing too poorly, too lazily, and having no desire to win. In his past life, he scolded a Premier League champion team, so even the coach didn't escape. A draw and you celebrate like champions? When asking about salary, Yeol was floored to discover the harsh truth. The pay for each match was only enough for the starting lineup, while the reserve positions didn't receive a single penny. Everyone persisted on the field just because of the fire of passion for soccer. Yeol had never imagined that brothers with the same ambition as him were facing such cruel living conditions. Seeing Yeol moping, Yoon-ho took him on a date to relieve his mood. Usually fickle, but this time the fox lady was extremely dedicated, spending the whole session grooming herself and appearing in front of Yeol with a completely new look. The moment he saw her, Yeol suddenly froze for a few seconds. All sorrows seemed to vanish. Yeol indulged Yoon-ho, doing everything she was interested in with her. Yoon-ho also copied normal couples, dragging him to lock a love lock to pray for connection. On the lock, she carefully wrote their names with a tiny heart, praying that both she and Yeol could soon return to their original identities. Seeing the guy unhappy, she added another heart between their names. Walking side by side on the way home, Yoon-ho even proactively held his hand affectionately. But contrary to that intimate gesture, the fox lady's heart didn't flutter a bit. She calmly told Yeol that as soon as she restored her nine-tailed fox identity, she would use magic to wipe out all his memories of the time they were together. That declaration was like a splash of cold water straight to Yeol's heart. Yoon-ho eloquently justified that, after all, they belonged to two completely different worlds, so erasing this messy romance was the best way for Yeol to move forward and live his own life to the fullest. To the fox lady, this oblivion wasn't cruel but rather the final gift she could give him. Thinking about forgetting Yoon-ho and these priceless memories, Yeol's heart suddenly felt an endless lingering regret. He told himself that if he was going to forget sooner or later anyway, then right now he should let his heart remember it deeply. Unable to hold back the surging emotions, Yeol gently placed a kiss on Yoon-ho's lips, and the two just immersed themselves in that sweet, passionate moment. But a deadly danger had silently crept up behind them. That person was the cruel sorcerer Zhang, with crimes piled as high as a mountain. The people he had killed had now turned into wandering, vengeful spirits, clinging to him day and night to demand his life. It was those resentful spirits that forced him to live in extreme pain and fear. They were determined not to let him die easily. Day after day, they frantically tore his body into pieces and then put him back together from scratch, trapping him in a horrific loop of dying and coming back to life, turning every moment of his existence into an endless living hell. That day, Lion went to meet the old sorcerer to report that Xian Yu was the one holding Yoon-ho's weakness. He asked the old man to help Xian Yu restore the memories that had been wiped clean by the nine-tailed fox. Both of them immediately rushed to Xian Yu's house and cast a spell. The long-forgotten fragments of Xian Yu's memory immediately flooded back. Xian Yu immediately revealed that Yoon-ho had now turned into a human, and her magical power had completely vanished. After a moment of shock, Yoon-ho hurriedly pushed Yeol away. He didn't flinch at all, declaring that he never does anything halfway, and this time he is extremely serious about wanting to date her. Although Yoon-ho was still worried that everything would go back to square one, Yeol's steadiness showed that he was truly determined to build this relationship. On the other hand, Zhang and Leon were frantically interrogating Xian Yu. Memories flooded back, and Xian Yu spilled the truth that Yoon-ho is no longer a powerful nine-tailed fox but just a mortal human now. This information made Lion incredibly smug because he thought the threat from her was over. However, Zhang realized a terrifying loophole. If Yoon-ho had lost all her magic, then who had enough power to wipe Xian Yu's memory before that? He vaguely guessed that there was still another nine-tailed fox hiding in the shadows. That night, Yoon-ho tossed and turned restlessly, her heart still racing when remembering the kiss and Yeol's sweet words. Intending to go out to get some water, she hesitated when she saw Yeol still sitting right there in the living room. When she sneaked out and got caught by him under the table, Yoon-ho had to do damage control by pretending to look for stuff. At this moment, Yeol said he was preparing to exercise to boost his fitness. He even gave her money to buy food and invited her to join the training. The next morning, the couple's workout session took place in an atmosphere that was both tense and funny. Yeol acted like a strict coach, forcing Yoon-ho to do everything from stretching to running until she was exhausted. Though exhausted, hearing Yeol offer a wish as a reward if she won the soccer match, Yoon-ho didn't hesitate to play dirty by kicking his leg to steal the ball and win. After the noisy moments, the two had some romantic strolling moments. Yeol held Yoon-ho's hand tightly, promising to play well to take care of her. They even painted a picture of a weekend getaway. Meanwhile, Xian Yu was also getting ready to head to the airport for an international match. Although worried about his friend, He felt temporarily reassured knowing the bad guy's target was only the Fox Lady, not Yale. As for Yoon-ho, wanting to share the financial burden with her boyfriend, she scrambled to apply for jobs everywhere but was rejected due to lack of qualifications. Finally, she had to settle for a part-time job at a convenience store. But life isn't like a dream. Yoon-ho's clumsiness caused all sorts of laughable and tearful situations. From wearing a teddy bear suit and getting teased by kids to working as a cashier but being clueless about payments, making customers furious, the consequence was the shop owner declared she not only lost her entire salary, but also had to compensate for the losses. Tragedy struck Yeol when he received shocking news. The team had its sponsorship cut and was dissolved, pushing his career to the brink of the abyss. Seeing her boyfriend sad, Yoon-ho tried to comfort him by giving him a sum of money. Yeol pressed about the source of the money, but Yoon-ho just glossed over it, saying it was a trade secret. Just then, Yeol's close friend group came over to throw a barbecue party to cheer for Shan Yu's match. The atmosphere was happy when Dong-bai kept feeling creeps like someone was watching him. When thunder and lightning struck, Yoon-ho detected a strange presence, so she dragged Yeol upstairs and shouted loudly, forcing the person hiding to reveal themselves. It turned out to be Ji-ho hiding nearby. At the same time, the villain Lion had officially usurped his father's fortune and admitted he was the one pulling the strings to cut Yeol's team sponsorship. As for Zhang, he was scouring old bookstores looking for some secret. Back to the clash of the two foxes, Ji-ho bragged about her skyrocketing spiritual power, but got scolded severely by Yoon-ho for breaking the rules by developing feelings for a human. Seeing Yeol speak up to defend Gi-ho, Yoon-ho got even more annoyed. The story was interrupted when Dong-bi panicked and reported the house was burgled. The air conditioner had vanished into thin air. At this point, Yoon-ho had to mumble a confession that she was the one who uninstalled the unit and sold it to get money for Yale. Even more heartbreaking, hearing the friend group value it, she realized she had been lowballed dirt cheap by a scammer. Shan Yu prepared to enter the match with an unstable mood. On the rooftop, Yoon-ho burst into tears, blaming her unlucky fate where everything she touched broke. Yeol also felt heavy-hearted because of his craving to stand on the pitch. Yoon-ho promised to find a way to bring his life back to normal. But just as they were about to share a kiss, bad news struck. Shan Yu had collapsed right on the field, his life hanging by a thread. Both rushed to the hospital. On the way, Yoon-ho accidentally bumped into a nurse. Immediately, she realized it was no stranger but Pogun in disguise. He pretended to ask if she was okay with an attitude full of hidden meaning. At the same time, Yeol was blocked by security staff at the hospital room door, even though he tried hard to explain he was Shan Yu's best friend. Luckily, Mr. Sang-chul appeared in time to bail him out. Yeol was allowed inside. Outside in the hallway, Yoon-ho started questioning Pogun. She pressed on about what exactly was happening, why Shan Yu was about to die, and why he hid this important matter from her. Responding to her worry, Pogun coldly said it was Shan Yu's unavoidable destiny. Even if he escaped death today, that ending was still a certainty. He even gave Yoon-ho a dagger, inciting her to kill Yeol to end everything and return to her powerful fox form. Pogun's offer made Yoon-ho recall the tragedy of a fox in the past who was also tricked into killing her husband like that. She firmly refused, asserting she would never fall for his trap. Yoon-ho declared fiercely that she would save Yeol at any cost and would always stay by his side to protect him, regardless of any risks. Back inside the room, Sang-chul reassured Yeol that Shan Yu's heart was beating again and he was out of critical danger. He also expressed appreciation that Yeol came here. When Sang-chul left, Yoon-ho entered and saw Yeol still in shock. On the bus ride home afterward, Yoon-ho wondered why Yeol cared about Shan Yu so much. Yeol confessed it was because they were close friends who understood each other. He knew that although Shan Yu had some inferiority complex, he was still a very pitiable and precious person. Hearing that, Yoon-ho wondered if she couldn't become human, or unfortunately had to die, would Yeol still like her? Yeol was surprised by that strange question, but Yoon-ho just dodged it, saying she was just thinking randomly. The next morning, Yoon-ho woke Yeol up early, handing him a long list of wrongdoings she had committed. She urged him to go with her to fix all these mistakes to help her increase her spiritual power. Elsewhere, Shan Yu, after waking up, received a bolt from the blue from the doctor. The test results showed he had heart cancer, an extremely rare and difficult to detect case. The doctor announced he only had about 6 months or less to live. Sang-chul was stunned, unable to believe his ears. He tried to ask about surgery or transplant possibilities, but received only desperate shakes of the head from the doctor. Not accepting the cruel truth, Shan Yu screamed in pain. He dismissed his father's suggestion to check elsewhere. Instead, he demanded his father use money to silence the doctor, absolutely not letting this leak out. Immediately after, he called demanding to meet Yeol. Switching scenes to the soccer training ground, the players were confused seeing the gate locked tight. It turned out due to some unresolved issues, the team was banned from training. Just as everyone was indignant, Ji-ho appeared. Recognizing her as Yeol's acquaintance, the players asked for her help. With just a gentle snap of her fingers, Ji-ho popped the lock open to everyone's amazement. However, fearing rule violations, the team didn't dare enter. Finally, they invited Ji-ho to go eat, and she happily accepted. Back at the hospital, Yeol and Yoon-ho visited Shan Yu. By now, Shan Yu's memory had returned. He knew clearly about his condition as well as Yoon-ho losing her powers. Shan Yu expressed regret that his greed to live longer caused trouble, but now he insisted on returning to his normal life as before. When Yeol sadly said that was impossible, Shan Yu became agitated and got angry at both of them. Seeing the tense situation, Yoon-ho made an excuse to push Yeol out to buy food so she could talk privately with Shan-yu. She bluntly exposed that he was trying to make a scene to hide his fear of death. Shan-yu was stunned knowing Yoon-ho had guessed his illness. Yoon-ho explained that Yeol worried about him a lot, so it was best not to let him know this heartbreaking truth. Finally, she proposed a deal to Shan-yu if he really didn't want to resign himself to fate. Switching scenes to the pool table, the players were splitting teams for practice matches, but the one-sided game made Bum's team lose miserably. Ji-eum-ho sat watching, suggesting she wanted to try, but everyone doubted her ability because she looked frail. Surprisingly, Gi-eum-ho stepped up, held the cue, and showed godlike skills, defeating the opponent to everyone's astonishment. No one thought a girl holding a cue for the first time could play like such a professional master. At this moment, Yeol brought gifts and bumped into Yoon-ho. Before he could ask about Shan-yu's situation, he was dragged away by her. On the way, Yeol gloomily confided about running out of money and the team disbanding, making the travel plan go down the drain. But Yoon-ho still optimistically encouraged him that there would be a way to solve everything. She led him to a market, pointing at the old store where she used to work, and angrily recounted being exploited terribly without being paid a penny. Hearing the injustice, Yeol aggressively stormed in, intending to demand justice for her. However, upon entering, Yeol froze, realizing the shop owner was his old representative from years ago. Meeting an old acquaintance, Yeol learned she now had a stable family and 2 children. When coming out, Yoon-ho excitedly thought Yeol had claimed the money, but unexpectedly saw him coming out with the female owner and the girl who helped Yoon-ho before. Yoon-ho showed clear annoyance, pressing why he was friendly with someone who treated him badly. Despite the owner claiming to remember nothing about the kindness from 9 years ago that Yeol mentioned, he still insisted on inviting everyone to dinner, making Yoon-ho follow quietly despite her resentment. Meanwhile, Ji-eum-ho was being fawned over and pampered by the soccer players at the dining table, making other members panic looking at it. Back to Yeol's group, he surprised the female owner by remembering her tastes clearly, something even her husband didn't know. Taking this opportunity, Yeol honestly shared about the difficult situation of the 4th Division team and asked for her help finding sponsorship. At the same time, Leon appeared with his secretary carrying a large bag. That money was handed to Zhang. He used it to bribe the shop owner to sell him a cursed item. Despite the dangerous warning that this item was very jinxed, he still gleefully took it after paying enough money. After the meal, Yoon-ho made everyone's eyes pop when she stepped up to pay. She pulled out the powerful black card obtained from Shan-yu in the previous deal to pay. Arriving home, Yoon-ho started getting jealous, hinting about Yeol talking too intimately with his old flame. At this point, Yeol thoughtfully confided that he felt guilty. He believed his success years ago seemed to have been traded for the female owner's luck, causing her life to go from well-off to struggling as it is now. Yeol's story made Yoon-ho somewhat softened. Suddenly the phone rang. Yoon-ho discovered she had taken Ha-rim's phone by mistake. Seeing the wallpaper was a driver for the Ji-eum-soo group, she was shocked, remembering Pogun's warning about a life lost because of her. The heartbreaking truth was revealed when Ha-rim came to swap phones. That man was the girl's father. Ha-rim was working herself to exhaustion day and night to pay debts and hospital fees for her mentally ill mother after the shock of losing her husband. Yoon-ho was tormented ceaselessly, realizing she was the indirect cause of the tragedy for the girl's family. To make amends, Ji-eum-ho used her power to secretly intervene, helping Ha-rim receive a full scholarship to study abroad, helping her shed the burden. With a black card in hand, Yoon-ho and Yeol decided to go big, organizing a grand trip for the soccer team by luxury bus, covering everything from A to Z. However, just as the trip started, the coach received an emergency call and hurriedly left, entrusting everything to the 2 of them to handle. Meanwhile, the female owner went to meet Leon to discuss investment. She wondered why a large corporation wanted to sponsor an unknown team. Leon just replied meaningfully that he found this team very interesting. Ji-eum-ho took the opportunity to go home to rest. Zhang had ambushed her. He used the monstrous ringing sound from the antique he just bought to attack, causing Ji-eum-ho to clutch her head in pain and faint. On the bus, Yoon-ho fell asleep and had a nightmare. In the dream, Pogun's curses about the cruel destiny returned. The image of Yeol coldly holding a knife and stabbing her straight in the body appeared clearly in her mind. Yoon-ho woke up with a start, drenched in sweat and tears streaming down. When Yeol worriedly asked, she could only silently look at him with eyes full of pain and despair. Meanwhile, Lion, having just woken up, pulled out a brand new hunting rifle, clutching it as if it were a protective charm. It seems that after the nightmares, Lion is in extreme panic. However, his attitude is now completely changed from fear to madness, because he believes Yoon-ho no longer has any power to threaten him. Back to Yeol. He was extremely confused seeing Yoon-ho burst into tears. When asked for the reason, she evaded, not wanting to answer. At this time, it was close to match time, but the coach was still missing. It turned out he was busy taking a sponsorship call and arrived late. But the wait was worth it. The coach brought back 2 shocking pieces of news. First, the team's new CEO is the shop owner lady. The players were still stunned when the second piece of news made them ecstatic. Thanks to the new sponsor the shop owner brought in, the previous meager salary of a few hundred won skyrocketed to 200,000 won, not to mention the winning bonus of up to 1,000,000 won. Needless to say, after hearing this, the players played like they were possessed, needing no high-level tactics, just charging blindly in an all-out attack because the scent of money was beckoning. Right at this moment, Lion crawled into the stands looking for Yoon-ho. He arrogantly claimed to be the team's new owner and threatened her, knowing full well Yoon-ho had lost all magic and was just a weak mortal. Lion believed that previously he had to live in fear, But now, with power and money in the human world, he would make her fear him in return. Witnessing the despicable man threatening his girlfriend, Yeol said nothing, rushing straight from the field into the stands to give Leon a punch from the heavens. The price to pay was a direct red card for Yeol, and more bitterly, Leon immediately cut all sponsorship. The team's dream of changing their lives vanished into thin air in an instant. In the locker room, while everyone was resentfully blaming Yeol, the new shop owner stood up to explain everything, revealing Lion was the one who caused the accident for Yeol years ago. The misunderstanding cleared. Yeol took Yoon-ho to the train station to send her back to Seoul. The two were lingering and reluctant to part, unaware that Gi-eum-ho, eight-tailed fox, was lurking and watching. Gi-eum-ho was now separated, body in one place, soul in another. She tried her best to speak up, wanting to warn Yoon-ho about the danger but failed. Unexpectedly, when Yeol settled into his seat, Yoon-ho discovered he was wearing that sweater. She suddenly realized the dream of seeing Yeol stabbed wasn't a hallucination. This was definitely a future omen. Without hesitation, Yoon-ho decided to get off the train. She used the excuse that Yeol once promised to take her sightseeing around the city, forcing him to fulfill the promise immediately. Indulging his beauty, Yeol took her to an ancient village from the Joseon era. The guy excitedly thought he introduced a cool place, but Yoon-ho is a fox who lived through several lifetimes. She's no stranger to this scene, but to make her boyfriend happy, she still acted excited, saying the scenery made her feel like she knew him in a past life. The two had a super sweet date, eating and taking their first commemorative photos together. While confiding, Yoon-ho confessed she felt like she belonged to his past. Hearing that, Yeol responded extremely affectionately that he wanted to take her to many new places so he could be attached to her future as well. Moved by that sincerity, Yoon-ho tentatively asked if a fox lady and a soccer star could be happy forever like this. Yeol affirmed firmly that he didn't mind, even knowing she was hiding something. Finally, Yoon-ho chose to keep the bad omens secret, only confessing vague fear and deep love for him. Ending the date, the two returned to the hotel, clearly booking 2 single beds. The receptionist assigned a double bedroom. Mouths pretended to demand a room change for propriety, but deep down, both implicitly understood this was a God-given opportunity. And so what had to come, came. They had a passionate night together, ignoring the storms waiting ahead. On the other side, Lion still hadn't given up his ambition. Although knowing well Yoon-ho was just a harmless mortal, dude agreed to possess the spirit bead. Lion didn't hesitate to spend 2 billion won hiring the sorcerer Zhang Duchio to hunt for the Vajra Bell, Chuang Kim Kang. The purpose was to use this bell to control Gi-eum-ho to force her to spit out the bead. However, man plans, God laughs. After Zhang spent all his magic to turn Gi-eum-ho into a henchman, he was horrified to realize she was completely empty inside. The situation became critical because if he didn't find the spirit bead to recharge energy, this sorcerer was sure to die in the next few days. At this point, Zhang's true face gradually revealed itself. He confessed to Lion that his goal wasn't just survival but large-scale revenge. He bore bone-deep hatred against the gods for indifferently watching his wife die in an accident, and his daughter desperately commit suicide due to illness. After slaughtering minor deities, his mad ambition now is to overthrow the supreme beings who created this world. Hearing this, even a cold-blooded person like Lion had to shudder in fear. The next morning, despite Yeol's regret over the pink sweater gifted by his grandmother, Yoon-ho insisted he throw it away to prevent the omen in the nightmare. However, just as he threw the shirt away, disaster struck. Gi-eum-ho's body appeared blocking the way, her eyes flashing with murderous intent. Gi-eum-ho's body rushed in to knock down Yeol and immediately controlled Yoon-ho, forcing her into a hallucination world to interrogate the whereabouts of the bead. In the daze, Yoon-ho was shocked to meet her deceased sister again, with her youthful, beautiful appearance from years ago. This fake sister used sweet words to brainwash Yoon-ho, planting the thought in her head that the romance with Yeol was just a fantasy. Taking advantage of Yoon-ho's extreme confusion, she skillfully probed for the hiding place of the spirit bead. It turned out Yoon-ho herself was holding it and had hidden it carefully in Seon-yu's hospital room, simultaneously cutting all links to protect the treasure. Just as Yoon-ho almost blurted out the truth, Gi-eum-ho's soul timely intruded into the dream to warn her. Knowing she was tricked, Yoon-ho struggled to resist but was immediately choked by the illusion until she couldn't breathe. In the real world, Gi-eum-ho's soul instructed Yeol to place the exorcism dagger in Yoon-ho's hand. Receiving the weapon, the Yoon-ho in the dream delivered a fatal stab to the imposter, shattering the hallucination and helping Gi-eum-ho regain control of her body. The consequences of failure struck Zhang immediately. He vomited blood violently and was taken to the emergency room by Leon. But on the hospital bed, what he faced wasn't a doctor but vengeful spirits returning to collect debts, making him scream in pain, begging to die for release. Thinking the storm had passed, Yeol and Yoon-ho took each other home. While Yeol went to the supermarket, Lion suddenly appeared at Yoon-ho's door with a gun in hand. He frantically blamed Yoon-ho for all recent failures and was determined to make her pay with her life. The moment Leon pulled the trigger, Yeol returned just in time. He didn't hesitate to throw himself to block the bullet for his lover. The gunshot rang out dryly. Yeol collapsed. A fatal wound landed Yeol in the hospital in critical condition. Outside, Yoon-ho fell to her knees, watching the doctors scramble to save his life. She felt utterly helpless. She prayed with everything she had, hoping he would survive this disaster. However, when the emergency room lights went out, the only news she got was to prepare for the worst. Yoon-ho looked at Yeol dying on the hospital bed, her heart breaking. She felt a mix of love and anger. Why did he take that hit for her? She was the one who was supposed to suffer, not him. Suddenly, Yoonho remembered Pagun's words. She immediately arranged a meeting with Sok. Right now, the only way to save Yeol was to trade her life for his. She took out the sword and handed it to Sok, begging him to stab her. Sok hesitated, but with his best friend's survival on the line, he had no choice but to swing the blade. The sharp sword pierced right into Yoonho's chest. Blood spilled, and the whole world began to shake. The fates of Yeol and Sok reverted to their original state. Even Gumo's wish became reality. When Yeol snapped out of it, he realized he was the one holding the sword that stabbed Yoonho. Panicked, he pulled her into his arms, begging her to stay. But fate was cruel, one of them had to die. By now, Yoonho felt no pain. Her only regret was that she had never confessed her love to him. In her final moments, she whispered softly, telling Yeol to forget her and live a good life. With those final words, Yoonho vanished into thin air. Watching the love of his life disappear right before his eyes, Yeol was devastated. Yoonho's soul drifted down to the spirit world. There, the gatekeeper gave her a bowl of forgetting soup, mangpo soup, and told her to let go of her past. In the blink of an eye, a year passed. Yeol, already famous, was now a superstar at the peak of his career. The city was plastered with his posters and albums. But despite the fame, he felt empty every time he went home. His friend, Seok, was now the owner of a BBQ restaurant. Whenever Yeol felt down, he went there to drink. Tonight, he confessed that he wanted to retire from soccer. Seek was surprised, but supported the decision, though he joked it would be a waste if an S-tier player like Yeol didn't at least become a coach. The two got completely wasted. Drunk and emotional, Yeol couldn't hide his feelings anymore. After all this time, he still hadn't forgotten Yoonho. Every memory of her, happy or sad, still haunted him. Yeol walked home with heavy steps. On the way, he stepped on some trash, which startled him. A motion sensor street lamp flickered on, reminding him of the place where they used to bond. Following his gut feeling, he ran toward that spot. Moments later, he was on the rooftop, screaming Yoonho's name, demanding she show herself. He even climbed onto the railing, trying to scare her into appearing. But as he calmed down, he realized how crazy he was acting. He gave a bitter laugh and turned to get down, but he slipped. Just when he thought his life was over, a hand grabbed him. It was Yoonho. It turned out Pagun had seen how much Yoonho had changed for the better, and moved by their tragic love story, decided to intervene. Back in reality, as soon as he was safe, Yeol pulled Yoonho into a tight hug. He couldn't believe it was real. He said if this was a dream, he'd rather keep sleeping. Only when Yoonho confirmed she was real did Yeol break down. He went on a dramatic rant, complaining about how miserable he was without her, how he couldn't eat or sleep properly. Under the moonlight, the two made a promise. They would never be apart again, and would face everything together. Yeol sealed the promise with a passionate kiss. The next day, Yeol dressed to impress Udon, hair gelled back. He was getting ready for their first proper date after so long. He nervously met the beautiful Yoonho and gave her a bouquet of flowers. The atmosphere was getting sweet until Yeol noticed a guy pointing a camera at them. Instinctively terrified of a scandal, Yeol pulled his mask up. But Yoonho just shrugged and said, "I hired him." She revealed that the whole film crew over there was hers too. She wanted to capture every moment, so she spared no expense. Yeol looked totally defeated but just went along with it. Under Yoonho's expectant gaze, he posed and made a heart shape with her. After having their fun, they sat down to rest. Yeol finally popped the question, "Do you want to live with me?" Yoonho said yes without hesitation. The next day, they traveled to an island. Yeol held Yoonho's hand as they walked along the white sandy beach, talking about their future. They hoped that no matter what happened, even if they argued or got upset,